Do you know the story of your birth? I mean, we all have one and it's uniquely ours. But do you know it? Where were you born? How were you born? What made it unique? Was it a fairly simple birth, or did you enter the world with dramatic flair? My kid sister and I used to always ask my mother to tell us the story of our birth. Tell us what it was like. I was born 18 days early. I was a low birth weight baby. I was in an incubator. My sister was totally boring on a Sunday morning during church. But both were unique and both were special. My kids ask me all the time, tell us the story of our birth. Tell us what it was like. We think of our births as these amazing events, but imagine if you're Moses asking his mother, Mom, tell me the story of my birth. Well, Moses' birth was beyond dramatic. It involved murder, floating down the Nile, avoiding crocodiles, cunning midwives, and being plucked from the waters by the Egyptian princess Hatshepsut. Remember, Moses, I hear his mother saying, the Hebrews are descendants of Abraham living in Egypt. Remember, Moses, we were living here. But we've grown too many and too numerous, and the Egyptian Pharaoh is threatened by us. And so Pharaoh Tutmosis I set out to reduce the Hebrew population. And so what he did was he told the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah, to commit infanticide, to stop those women from having those babies. But Puah and Shiphrah were strong in God's power and God's love. And they said to the Pharaoh, Tutmosis, we can't even get there. These Hebrew women are thwarty women. They have these babies before we can even arrive. So Tutmosis authorized Egyptian citizens to kill every Hebrew baby boy. It's a scary time, Moses, that you were born into. And as soon as you were born, Moses, I knew that there was something about you. But if I had a baby boy, they would have killed you. So I put you into a papyrus-coated basket with tar, and I put you into the Nile River. And I watched you float past hungry crocodiles and water rapids, through reeds and dams, beyond royal guards who were looking for you. And as you floated down, God steered your basket right to the palace place where Pharaoh's daughter Hatshepsut was bathing. And she looked at you and she knew you were a Hebrew baby because of the sign of God's covenant that all Hebrew males take on, or off, so to speak. And so she knew she was supposed to drown the baby, but she couldn't do it. And so she told one of her slave girls, go find some Hebrew woman to nurse and care for this child for me, Hatshepsut. This, Moses, is your birth story. And it's the story of how you became adopted into a royal family. I thought my story was dramatic. Moses' birth story is just one thing after another after another. Imagine the absurdity of a Hebrew slave being raised as part of the royal family and leading those Hebrew slaves to freedom. I think about this story, and here's where it's hard for me. Because Moses' mother had to trust in her son's salvation in the middle of a river. She had to trust beyond her control that he was going to be okay. How does one trust God when God has left the people in Egypt for 400 years? How can she ever trust that God will protect her son, this one? What makes him different? I am always hesitant and weary as a pastor and theologian of proclaiming a theology that absolutely insists God has a plan. Because sometimes we can't see it. And we never want to turn God into a puppet master who decides who survives on the river of life and who doesn't. But I do think this story illustrates how unfair life is and how we are called to rely on God, to trust on God in the chaos of living. God didn't command Pharaoh to kill those baby boys. But could God have been part of the unfolding of this baby boy leading these people to freedom and out of bondage? Could God have been working on Hot Cheap Suit's heart to help her embrace this Hebrew child? See, the struggle of trusting God is that we as humans think we have to be the ones in control. We want God to enact God's justice, right? Which often is our view of justice on the whole world. We want God's anger to be swift and align with our own sense of righteousness. We want to control the story, the direction of the river, the way the boat moves and ebbs and flows. We want a nice, soft landing into the shore. But we don't control much of the river of life. All we control is our response and our faith in it. Will we be people who believe that God is with us and loves us and part of what we're doing, or not? Moses' mother, when she placed him in that basket and put him down the river, she had to make a choice between his being caught and killed or placing her son into the river. And if she never let go of her control, she never would have been able to move forward. I certainly am one who wants control, needs to have control. This is an unsettling experience for me right now, to float down the river without any paddle, hoping, praying, believing it's going to turn out all right. This fall, some parents will entrust our children to others, while others will face the struggles of homeschool. Regardless of which you choose, you are embracing a chaotic experience, and you're going to have to let go of some control over the outcomes and what happens. How can I keep the crocodiles and the whitewater rapids away from my daughter? How can I best protect her? I can't. She is going to face struggles in the world. All I can offer is an invitation to believe and have faith that God is indeed present and participating in our lives, whether we can understand it, whether we can see it, or most importantly, whether we agree with it. As Moses' mother watched her son float down the river, she let go of her control to trust God. She had to have faith beyond what she could see. That was the only way to have hope. To have faith beyond what she could see was the only way to have hope for her son and for her people. In the original Hebrew, the word for basket is tabak. It is used only one other time in the Hebrew Bible. It is used to describe the ark that Noah loads everyone on to lead them, the animals and his family, to a new world, to a new promise. The basket is floating down the river. It's not simply papyrus. It's not simply a saving moment for Moses. It is the vessel of God's choosing. In the original Hebrew, the word for basket is tabuk, and it's only used one other time. It's used when Noah loads all the animals and his family onto the ark, and he leads them into a safe place, into a promised land. This basket floating down the river, it is not simply a saving moment for Moses. It's not simply some papyrus out there. It is the vessel of God's choosing to save the Hebrew people. What ark are you needing right now? What ark are you creating so those living in bondage can experience freedom? How are you placing a basket to float in the river of life that one day will yield the release of captives, will relieve the bondage of others? How are you letting go and allowing God to be part of the journey? Amen.